Hi friends, I hope you are all doing good. My name is Dilip. In this video, we'll be discussing about the amendments which will be applicable for your November examination. Please note, the amendments which I'll be taking in this video will cover the amendments which were applicable for May examination and also the amendments which are given for the November examination. So if you have not seen my previous video, not a problem at all. This video will give you the complete amendments which is applicable for November examination and onwards. So you don't have to worry. And I'm really very sorry, I am uploading the video at a very later stage of time. You just have 1 month of time for your examination. one and a half months time is there for your examination. Actually my wife was conceived, so I was busy with those things, and with God's grace and all your blessings, I am blessed with a baby girl. Just thought of informing you all about this. Okay, so now let me straight away start with the amendments which is applicable for November and December examination. Mostly my paper will be in the month of December only. The IDT paper will be in the December only. Please note, I am repeating again, this material or the amendments which I am taking is covering the amendments which were given for May 20 or June 20 examination, and also the amendments which are given for November 20 examination. Okay, straight away I'll start with the first amendment. So first amendment is about the topic on supply under GST. So supply under GST is the first topic. So under supply they have given few amendments. One such amendment is services by way of grant of alcoholic liquor shall neither be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. Now Section 7 subsection 2 deals with activities which shall not be considered as either supply of goods or supply of services. Now Section 7 subsection 2 has two arrow marks in this. Section 7 subsection 2 has told one is government notified and the other will be Schedule 3 activities. Schedule 3 has totally 9 activities listed in that. If you are falling under those 9 activities, such as services by employee to employer in the course of employment, services by court or tribunal, services by MLA MP, services by way of funeral, burial, including transportation of deceased, sale of land, and sale of building subject to para 5B of Schedule 2, and actionable claims except lottery betting and gambling, high sea sales, warehouse sales, and third country sales. So these are the different activities covered under Schedule 3. Apart from that, government has also notified few activities. Government has also notified few activities. Before, the activity performed by Panchayat under 243W or by municipality under 243G. So activity which is performed by Panchayat or municipality under the activities which were specified in Article 243G or 243W of our Constitution, these activities, if they are performed by a municipality or and Panchayat, were not treated as supply at all. Now they have added one more activity. Just a simple thing they have done. What have they done, sir? They have just added one more activity. This activity will neither be treated as supply of goods nor be treated as supply of services, meaning this activity also is not a supply under GST. This activity is also not a supply under GST. What is the newly added activity, sir? Newly added activity is sale of liquor license by state government. Now if you want to operate a liquor business in a particular state, you have to take the permission from the state government, that particular state government. The state government will give you the license to operate the liquor business. For that taking the license, you have to give some license fees. Okay, for operating fees or license fees is something which is required to be paid by you. Now you are taking the license from state government, for which you are paying some amount. Now if you remember, Section 7 subsection 1 clause A says supply includes all form of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, lease, license. So supply of license will also be treated as supply of also be treated as supply under GST. However, they have specifically told that if that license is with respect to liquor business, starting of a liquor business, and if that license is given by the state government, to you, then that will not be treated as supply. It will neither be treated as supply of goods nor be treated as supply of services. Sir, oh sir, Dilip sir, I am Dilip sir. Sir, I took from state government of Karnataka, I took the liquor license to operate a liquor business, sir. Now, sir, for this, no, sir, I paid an amount of rupees 5 lakh rupees. I paid rupees 5 lakhs for taking liquor license. Now, this is not subject to GST. Why, sir? Because this is no supply. Sir, my question is, sir, what is your question? Sir, my question is, what if Dilip sells it to Mr. A? I didn't understand, sir. Dilip is procuring the license from the state government of Karnataka, for which I have paid 5 lakh rupees. This 5 lakh rupees which I have paid, no GST applicable because it is not treated as supply at all. Now, sir, what if Dilip is selling this license to Mr. A. Dilip is selling this license to Mr. A for rupees 50 lakhs. Dilip is selling the license to Mr. A for rupees 50 lakhs. Will this be subject to GST? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. So, if government is giving it to me, no GST. If I am selling it to someone else, then it will be subject to GST. That transaction will be subject to GST. Okay, this is what is the first amendment all about, or the first newly inserted provision in section 7 subsection 2. Next, section 7 subsection. Okay, there is a clarification given. Now there is a clarification given. What is this clarification all about? This clarification is with regard to supply of goods for an exhibition outside India. Now what they are trying to tell over here, sir, there is an exhibition which is happening outside India. There is an exhibition which is happening outside India. Now for that exhibition which is happening, assuming the exhibition is of gold or diamonds, etc. There is a gold or diamond exhibition which is happening in Dubai. So from India, I am transferring the goods to that exhibition. Please note, I am not selling those goods. I am just transporting the goods for the purpose of exhibition to that location where exhibition is held. So exhibition is held in Dubai. From India, I am transferring the gold to Dubai. I am transferring jewelry to Dubai for the purpose of this exhibition. Sir, this transfer of goods to this Dubai, will it be treated as supply? Or the actual clarification is with regard to whether this transfer of goods from India to a place outside India for the purpose of exhibition, is it treated as zero rated supply? Section 16 of IGST Act. Section 16 of IGST Act talks about zero rated supply. It says supply meant for export of goods or services, or supply meant to an SEZ unit or SEZ developer, that will be treated as zero rated supply. Now, as per the definition, is this transaction of sending goods from India to a place outside India for the purpose of exhibition only, will this transaction be treated as zero rated supply? Now see, as per section 7 subsection 1 clause A, if I want to call something as a supply, there are 5 conditions or 5 elements which is required to be satisfied. That supply should be of goods or services. That supply should be for made or agreed to be made. That supply should be for a consideration. It should be by a person, and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. If all these 5 conditions or 5 elements are there in a particular transaction, I will call it as a supply. Supply should be of goods and services. Supply should be for a consideration. Supply should be made or agreed to be made. It should be by a person. It should be in the course or furtherance of business. Now in this transaction, it is a supply of goods. Transfer of goods is element number 1 is satisfied. It is made. Transfer is already made. Is it for a consideration? Answer is no. Is it for a consideration? Answer is no. When the goods are going for an exhibition, there is no consideration received at all. It is just transfer of goods for the purpose of exhibition. After that exhibition is over, I will get back these goods. So therefore, they are telling, because element number 3 is not satisfied. Is it by a person? Yes, it is by a person. Is it in the course of business? Yes, it is a course of business. 4 elements are satisfied, but 1 element is not getting satisfied. Therefore, it is not a supply as per section 7 subsection 1 clause A. Because it is not a supply at all, the question of calling it as zero rated supply or non-zero rated supply does not arise. This is what the clarification is telling. What is the clarification telling? So clarification in respect of goods sent or taken out of India for exhibition or on consignment basis for export promotion. For the purpose of promotion of export, I am taking goods outside India. What is the conclusion? Since such activity is not a supply, since it is not a supply at all, the same cannot be considered as zero rated supply as per the provisions of section 16 of IGST Act. Now again, one thing you should keep in mind, there is also section 7 subsection 1 clause C, read with schedule 1, which talks about supply without consideration. There are 4 activities specified over there. There are 4 paras which talks about supply with consideration. Please note, this sending of goods for the purpose of exhibition should not fall under section 7(1)(c), or it should not fall under schedule 1. If it is falling under schedule 1, then definitely it will be supply, and if it is a supply, it will also be called as zero rated supply. Next, point number 3, levy of GST on services by way of display of name or placing of name on the nameplates of donors in the premises of charitable organization receiving donations or gift from an individual donor. Beautiful. I am receiving any donation or gift from an individual person. I am receiving from an individual donor. I am receiving some gift or some donation. Who is receiving? A charitable institute is receiving. Now, because it is receiving some gift from an individual, it is displaying the name of that individual. It is displaying the name of that individual. Will this be called as supply? Will this transaction be called as supply? Now, very simple thing. What happens is, say for example, Priya Sarees, okay? For example, Priya Sarees gave rupees 1 lakh. Priya Sarees gave rupees 1 lakh to Reliance Foundation. Okay, to Reliance Foundation, Priya Sarees gave rupees 1 lakh. Now, the 1 lakh which is given by Priya Sarees, for this 1 lakh, Priya Sarees has told, please display my name in your banner. Whatever banner, whatever event, whichever event you are going to host, and for whichever event you are taking this donation, please in that event or in the banner which you are going to create, please also write my name. Please also write my name, say Priya Sarees, or in the list of donors which you are going to display in your own foundation or in your own trust, charitable institution, also write my name, that Priya Sarees gave 1 lakh rupees. Also write my name, that Priya Sarees gave 1 lakh rupees. Now what is happening over there? This donation which is given by me, to Reliance Foundation is also going to get me a business. How, sir, it will get you a business? See, this donation which is given by me, this donation of 1 lakh rupees which is given by me this donation of 1 lakh rupees which is given by me is in the form of advertisement. This donation which is given by me is in the form of advertisement. It is advertising Priya Sarees. Now what people will feel, oh, Priya Sarees is a very good sari, it is into a very good sari business, wherein it is also donating some amount to different people. It is also donating some amount to different people or different causes. So people will like it and they will come and buy more sarees from me. They will like it and they will come and purchase more and more sarees from me. Now this is indirectly treated as supply. Actually, this is directly only treated as supply. Why? If you see, all the conditions of supply are satisfied. Condition number 1, it should be supply of services. Advertisement services is been received. Who is giving advertisement services? Reliance Foundation is giving Priya Sarees and advertisement services. Then, is it made? Yes, it is made. Is it made by a person? Yes. Foundation or a charitable institute is also called as a person. And is it for a consideration? Yes. Now, what they are telling, the donation which you are giving, I will treat it as a consideration. Is it in the course of business? Yes, it is increasing my business. Yes, it is increasing my business. It will satisfy all the conditions, and therefore donation given by Priya Sarees, where Priya Sarees name is also been displayed, will amount to supply, and it will be subject to GST. But this clarification is not with regard to Priya Sarees. There is no confusion for Priya Sarees, donation given by Priya Sarees. But this clarification is with regard to Dilip. Now, Dilip is the owner of Priya Sarees, or let me not be an owner of Priya Sarees, just Dilip is an individual. Now, Now recently in my family we are blessed with a daughter, so baby girl has been born. So what I did was, I went to this Akshay Patra and I donated 1 lakh rupees. I went to Akshay Patra or I went to some charitable institute near my house. I went and donated 1 lakh rupees over there. I went and donated 1 lakh rupees over there. Now, because I donated 1 lakh rupees, this charitable institute is writing, "Thank you, Dilip, for your generous donation. Best wishes from Dilip." Okay, something like this they are writing. "Thank you, Dilip, for your generous donation," or best wishes from Dilip, etc. This is what is been written in their notice board or in some banner which they have printed. Now, this writing of "Thank you, Dilip," is nowhere. Dilip can be anyone, so it is nowhere advertising my business, correct? This writing of "Thank you, Mr. Dilip" is nowhere advertising my business. So they are telling, if the donation given by you, and if you have given some donation to a charitable institute and the charitable institute is displaying your name, and the display of name does not amount to, and if the display of name is not advertising your business directly or indirectly, then that donation will not be called as supply. That donation which is given will not be treated as supply, and no GST will be levied. I'll just read it for you. Okay, I'll just read the crux, actually main point. See, when the name of the donor is displayed in the recipient institute premises in such a manner that it is not aimed of giving publicity to donor's business. If the name is displayed in such a manner that it is not giving publicity to my business, then it can be said that there is no supply of services for a consideration. There is no supply of services for a consideration. Here consideration is in the form of donation. So there is no supply of services if the donation which is given by you does not indirectly benefit me somewhere else, or it is not aiming to publicize my business. Okay, so these are the three points of clarifications and amendments which were made in topic number 1 or chapter number 1. Next is composition scheme. There are beautiful amendments made in this chapter. So because there are so many good amendments which is made in this topic, please and amendments which are made is also not very simple amendments. What was previously studied by you as a notification is will now be studied by you as a section. So there are very good notifications given over here. Now these notifications which are given, or these amendments which has been given, let us straight away see. Important from examination, this topic becomes important because there are good amendments. Now point number 1, section 10 subsection 2. There is something called as what? Section 10 subsection 2. What is section 10 subsection 2 talking about? Section 10 subsection 2 talks about the conditions for being a composition dealer. Meaning, if you are a person who is opting for composition scheme, these are the things you should not do. If you want to become eligible for composition scheme, these are the things you should keep in your mind. What are the different things? Section 10 subsection 2 talks about 5 things. Section 10 subsection 2. Now there is an amendment in section 10 subsection 2 also. Now the items it is talking about is 6. Before it was 5, now it is 6. Anyways, we'll see that later. Now what are the different things you should keep in mind if you want to become a composition dealer? Point number 1, you should not supply services other than those specified in section 9 subsection 1. Point number 2, you should not make interstate outward supply. Point number 3, you should not supply through an e-commerce operator who is required to collect taxes under section 52. Who is required to collect taxes under section 52. Then you should not supply non-taxable supplies. You should not make non-taxable supplies such as HP man, high-speed diesel, petroleum crude, motor spirit, or alcoholic liquor for human consumption. And there was one more point. If you are a manufacturer, can you opt for composition scheme? Definitely I can opt for composition scheme. But what this point is telling, a manufacturer of ice cream, pan masala and tobacco products is not eligible to become a composition dealer. Now what they have done is they have added one more point over here. If you are a manufacturer or a supplier of aerated waters, if you are what? If you are a manufacturer or supplier of aerated waters, you cannot opt for composition scheme. You cannot, or you will not be eligible to opt for composition scheme. See, as per section 10 subsection 1, tell me who can all opt for composition scheme. Restaurant services provider can opt for composition scheme, manufacturer can opt for composition scheme, and also others. Example, traders can opt for composition scheme. Traders can opt for composition scheme. Who is telling? Section 10 subsection 1 is telling that. Now section 10 subsection 2 gives the conditions. If you want to become a composition dealer, you should not supply services other than those mentioned in section 9 subsection 1, section 10 subsection 1. You should not make interstate outward supply. You should not supply through an e-commerce operator. You should not make non-taxable supplies. Then you should not manufacture notified goods. In this notified goods, they have notified one more item. What is that one more item which is notified, sir? The new item which is notified is this aerated waters. They have notified one more new item which is aerated waters. Okay, so now if you are a manufacturer of Pita, you cannot become a composition dealer. Now these are the new amendments. See, this amendment, aerated waters, was already covered in May examination. Now these are the new amendments. 2, 3, 4, 5 are something which is newly inserted and are applicable from November 20 and onwards. So now in section 10 subsection 1, section 10 subsection 1 talks about what, sir? Section 10 subsection 1 talks about eligibility. Who is eligible to become a composition dealer? Section 10 subsection 1 talks about eligibility. Who is eligible to become a composition dealer? Section 10 subsection 1 says every registered person having an aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year not exceeding 1.5 crores, having an aggregate turnover of not exceeding 1.5 crores in the preceding financial year, can opt to pay tax at composite rates in lieu of tax payable by him under section 9 subsection 1. So instead of paying the tax under section 9 subsection 1, you can opt to pay tax at composite rates. When can I opt to pay tax at composite rates? If your aggregate turnover of preceding financial year is not exceeding, it is less than or equal to 1.5 crores. Okay, I think symbol less than is ulta. So if it is not exceeding, if it is less than or equal to 1.5 crores, you can opt for composition scheme. What do you mean by aggregate turnover? Aggregate turnover means aggregate value of all taxable supplies, exempt supplies, interstate supply to a person having same PAN, and export of goods or services. And aggregate turnover shall not include inward supply liable for reverse charge, and aggregate turnover shall not include taxes under GST such as CGST, SGST, IGST, GST compensation cess, and UTGST. These are the this is the definition of aggregate turnover. Now this section 10 subsection 1 had two provisos. What is proviso number 1? Proviso number 1 says this limit can be increased up to 2 crores provided that the government has all the liberty to increase this limit up to 2 crores, and provided further that there is proviso number 2. This change is in this proviso number 2. What is the second proviso telling? The second proviso is telling a person who is eligible to become a composition dealer can supply services. A person who is eligible to become a composition dealer can supply services up to 10% of aggregate turnover in preceding financial year, or rupees 5 lakhs, whichever is higher. So up to 10% of aggregate turnover, instead of aggregate turnover, up to 10% of turnover in a state or union territory, up to 10% of turnover in a state or union territory in the preceding financial year, or rupees 5 lakhs, whichever is higher. Now what they have done is, in this definition of state or turnover in a state, they have just told that while calculating the value of services, what, sir? While calculating the value of services, please do not include, while calculating the value of services, please do not include the income which you are earning by way of interest or discount. So if you have given a loan to someone if you are given a loan to someone and you are charging something for that loan, it is treated as supply of services. Everyone is clear about it. If a loan has been given and if you are charging something for that loan, it is supply of services. Now, for the loan I am receiving a consideration in the form of interest, this is exempt under exemption topic. Under exemption topic, it is exempt. But please note, turnover in a state also includes exempt supplies. But they are specifically telling that for the purpose of calculating this 10%, for the purpose of calculating this 10%, do not add this interest. Whatever income is derived by you in the form of interest or discount, do not add that particular thing while calculating the value of 10% value. Now, this was already there before also. This explanation which they have added in section 10 subsection 1, no, this was already there before also, but this was issued by way of a notification number 1/2019. This point was already there before also, but it was through a notification number 1/2019. Now, instead of notification, they have added it into the main section only. So, what it is telling, please note, it is only for the purpose of second proviso. For the purpose of second proviso, the value of exempt supply of services provided by way of extending deposit loans or advances, insofar as the consideration is represented by way of interest or discount, shall not be, what sir? It shall not be taken into account for determining the value of turnover in a state or turnover in a union territory. For your reference, I have given the second proviso. What is that second proviso is also given over here for your reference. Now, there is an amendment made. Just one point they have added in section 10 subsection 2. What is section 10 subsection 2? Conditions for a composition dealer. If you become a composition dealer, what are the different conditions you want to satisfy? These conditions where you should not supply services, you should not be engaged in making non-taxable supplies, you should not make interstate outward supply, you should not be engaged in making supply through an e-commerce operator, and you should not manufacture notified goods. These were the 5 conditions which were there under section 10 subsection 2. Now they have added one more condition. Now what they have done, sir? They have added one more condition. What condition they have added? They have added one more point telling, if you want to become a composition dealer, you should neither be a casual taxable person nor be a non-resident taxable person. So if you are a casual taxable person or if you are a non-resident taxable person, you will not be eligible to become a composition dealer. Is this something new for you? Is this something new for you? You already know this point, sir. Sir, we already know this point, sir. We had studied this point in rule number 5. We had studied this point in rule number 5. Now, normally what happens is rules are given for clarification purpose. It is just for the reference of the main section. See, say procedural points will be given in the rules. So, how can you tell that casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person cannot be a composition in rules? Now, because rules are only for clarificatory or for procedural purpose, they have told instead of adding this point in rule, I will directly add it in section. Instead of editing in rule, I will directly add it in section. So this is new addition which they have made. Not such important amendment, but you should note that this he is neither a casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person. Instead of in rule number 5, they have added that point in section 10 subsection 2 only. So this is the new addition which they have made. So conclusion, one condition mentioned in rule 5 is now added in section 10 subsection 2, which deals with person eligible to opt for composition scheme. Very simple amendment, very simple amendment. Now this is something new. New in the sense, this is something which you have already studied, this is something which you already know, but newly added section is there. Section 10 subsection 2A. Section 10 subsection 2A. Now, before you were studying something called as notification number 2/2019. What was this notification number 2/2019? It was composition scheme for service providers. Composition scheme for service providers. What this notification said, that the service providers have an option to pay tax at concessional rate. Now, instead of calling it instead of having that notification number 2/2019, they have told, let me just add this notification in this in the mains act only. So they have added this section in this notification in the act by way of inserting a section 10 subsection 2A. they have inserted a new section, section 10 subsection 2a, and whatever was there in this notification, same points are made applicable over here. What is this section 10 subsection 2 is telling? It is composition scheme for service providers. What is it talking about, sir? It is composition scheme for service providers. Okay, what are the different points which is told by this section? I'll read this new section which has been inserted. This is the actual provision which they have given. Notwithstanding to anything contrary contained in this act, but subject to the provisions of section 9 subsection 3 and section 9 subsection 4, meaning what? Even though I am talking about something to you, section 9 subsection 3 and section 9 subsection 4, which relates to reverse charge mechanism, which talks about reverse charge mechanism, they will be applicable to you also. Meaning, notwithstanding to anything contrary contained in this act, meaning section 10 subsection 2 is telling you something. If there is any other provisions in this act which is talking against section 10 subsection 2a, section 10 subsection 2a is talking about something. If there is any other provisions in this act which is talking against section 10 subsection 2a, don't follow that. Don't follow that. That is the meaning of this first line. But however, subject to the provisions of section 9 subsection 3 and section 9 subsection 4. But however, please follow 9.3 and 9.4. Don't follow any other provisions in this act if it is contradicting you. But please follow 9.3 and 9.4. Though I am giving you a benefit of paying tax at concessional or a lesser rate or a composite rates, you will have to follow section 9 subsection 3, which is with regard to reverse charge mechanism. And if you are liable to pay tax under reverse charge, you will have to pay tax at normal rates for those items. Say for example, I am taking legal services from an advocate. Now legal services from an advocate is liable for reverse charge and GST rate applicable is 18%. I will have to pay tax at 18% for that inward supply for which I am liable to pay tax at reverse charge. Okay, anyways, I'll read this provision for you. A registered person who is not eligible to opt to pay tax under section 10 subsection 1 or section 10 subsection 2. Now, who is not eligible to opt for section 10 subsection 1? If you are a supplier of services, you will not be eligible to opt for section 10 subsection 1. A registered person who is not eligible to opt for 10.1 or 10.2 and whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year did not exceed 50 lakh rupees. Whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year does not exceed 50 lakh rupees, it is less than or equal to 50 lakh rupees, he has an option. Please note, composition scheme is never compulsory. It is always an option which is given to you. He has an option in lieu of tax payable by him under section 9 subsection 1. Instead of paying tax under section 9 subsection 1, that is, instead of paying the tax at normal rates, I am giving you an option to pay tax at a lesser rates. That lesser rate shall not exceed 3%, meaning I am giving you an option to pay tax at 3%. 3% is what, sir? CGST. Similar changes is made in SGST also or UTGST also. So 3% is CGST, 3% is SGST or UTGST. So 3% of what, sir? Turnover in a state or union territory. I am giving a benefit to pay tax at a lesser rate which is equal to 3%. Instead of this, I will call it as 6%. Why, sir, 6%? 3% CGST, 3% SGST. I am giving a benefit to pay tax at a lesser rate of 6%. Lesser rate of 6%. Sir, why are you telling it 6%, sir? See, we are studying CGST Act. So the provisions given in the section will talk only what is applicable under CGST. CGST rate is 3%. Similar rate is required to be paid or similar tax is required to be paid under SGST also or UTGST also. That will be 3%. So 3% CGST, 3% SGST. So at concessional rate, I'll have to pay the taxes. If he is not, there are conditions. Conditions, what are the conditions? If he is not a person who is making supply of goods or supply of services which are not liable to tax, if provided that you should not be making non-taxable supplies, provided that you should not make interstate outward supply of goods or services, provided that you should not supply through an e-commerce operator who is required to collect taxes under section 52, provided that you should not manufacture notified goods. Which are these notified goods, sir? Pita. And you should not be a casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person. So if these conditions are satisfied, you will be eligible to pay tax at a lesser rate of 3% or 6% of turnover in a state or turnover in a union territory. There is a proviso also. What is this proviso telling? Provided that if there are more than one registered person under same PAN, if there are more than one registered person under same PAN, if one is opting to pay tax at concessional rates or at lesser rate, the others also should opt for paying the tax at concessional or lesser rate. Now I'll repeat this provision. Section 10 subsection 2. Section 10 subsection 2A, sorry. Section 10 subsection 2 is composition scheme for service providers. Composition scheme for service providers. If you are a person who is not eligible to become a composition dealer as per section 10.1 or 10.2 and your aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year has not exceeded 50 lakh rupees, then you can opt for this scheme. You can opt to pay tax at concessional rate of 6%, 3% CGST, 3% SGST, provided that you are not making non-taxable supplies, provided that you are not making interstate outward supply, provided that you are not engaged in supply of if you are not supplying through an e-commerce operator who is required to collect taxes, then provided that you are not manufacturing notified goods and you are not an casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person. If these conditions are satisfied, you can opt to pay tax at a concessional rate or a lesser rate of 3% CGST, 3% SGST. There is a proviso. If there are more than one registered person under same PAN, then everyone should opt for this scheme. Meaning what, sir? Say for example, Dilip is a chartered accountant in practice. So I am a CA in practice. Now I have branches in Bangalore, I have a branch in Chennai, I have a branch in Mumbai, and I have a branch in Delhi. I have branches at these different locations. Now what is this point telling? Now in Bangalore, if you are opting for this scheme, if you are opting for section, meaning if you are registered separately in Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai and Delhi, if in Bangalore you opt for section 10 subsection 2A, if you in Bangalore you want to become a composition dealer, which is for a service provider, then in Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi also you will have to opt for this scheme. In Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi also you will have to opt for this scheme. You will have to pay tax at concessional rate only. Meaning what? You cannot become a normal dealer for one registration and you cannot become a composition dealer for other registration. If you want to become a composition dealer, become composition dealer for all the different registration which you have. If you want to become a regular dealer, become regular dealer for all the registration. One composition, one regular mixture, not possible. Not allowed. Now then, because this new section has been introduced, section 10 subsection 2A, corresponding changes have been made in section 10.3, 10.4 and 10.5. 10.3 is talking about the scheme shall lapse if in the current financial year if your aggregate turnover exceeds the specified limit. 10.4 talks about a composition dealer cannot issue tax invoice, that is he cannot collect taxes on supplies and he cannot take input tax credit. And section 10.5 talks about show cause notice will be issued to you if you are contravening the provisions of this act. So same sections are still there, same section 10.3, 10.4, 10.5 are still there. In those section we are talking only about section 10 subsection 1. Now they are telling both section 10.1 and 10.2 will be 10.2 is also required to be read, meaning section 10.3, section 10.4, section 10.5 is also applicable for a composition dealer who is opting for this scheme under section 10 subsection 2A. Meaning if your aggregate turnover, if you are taking composition scheme if you are a service provider and opting for composition scheme under section 10 subsection 2A, under section 10 subsection 2A, and if your aggregate turnover crosses 50 lakh rupees in current financial year, your scheme shall lapse. If you are a person who is opting for section 10 subsection 2A, paying tax at composite rates, then you cannot issue a tax invoice. You will have to issue something called as bill of supply. You will not be eligible to take input tax credit. So corresponding changes have been made in section 10.3, 10.4 and 10.5. So that is all with regard to composition scheme. There are not much changes. I mean, actual changes, if you see from your exam perspective, only a section has been changed. Before, something which was there by way of a notification is now included in section. That is the only change which they have done. Next change is in charging section next topic which we are going to discuss is charge of GST, which will be covering RCM and section 9 to section 9 subsection 1 to section 9 subsection 5. Now, amendments in reverse charge notifications. Now, before we had a reverse charge applicable for literary mat services. So if you are providing services by way of transfer of copyright with regard to literature, music, or artistic or dramatic work, if these are transferred by an author, an actor, etc., to a publisher or a producer, then in such cases RCM was applicable. Now what they have done for this literature work which is provided by an author, the literature work which is provided by an author, instead of reverse charge mechanism, that author has been given an option to pay tax at forward charge also. Meaning what, sir? I didn't understand only, sir. I didn't understand what you are telling. See, before the provision was, I'll read the provision, you'll understand this better. Earlier, the tax, the supply of services by an author, music composer, photographer, artist, and like what type of services? Transfer of permitting to use or enjoyment of copyright under Copyright Act, etc., or relating to their original literary, dramatic, musical or artistic work to a music company or a producer, or like if you are transferring it to a publisher, music company or a producer, then that music company or the producer who is located in taxable territory were liable to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism. They were the person who was liable to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism. Now they are telling the services of author by way of transfer of literature work will not be subject to GST. They are not, it is not that it will not be subject to GST, I'm sorry. They are telling the author has an option to pay tax at forward charge also. Meaning RCM will be applicable if author is not registered. If author is not registered, the publisher will have to pay the taxes. If author is registered and he makes a declaration that I want to pay tax under forward charge mechanism, then he can pay tax at forward charge mechanism. There is an option. So what they have done is they have removed that author and literary words from section entry number 9, and they have added a new entry. In that exemption notification, they have added a new entry number 9A. What is this entry number 9A telling? Supply of services by an author by way of transfer or permitting you to use or enjoyment of copyright relating to original literary work to a publisher is subject to reverse charge mechanism. Sir, now you told it is subject to forward charge, now you are telling reverse charge. See, author, 2 arrow marks. Author says, I wish to pay tax. Author says, I wish to pay tax by myself under forward charge mechanism. Then the law is telling, yes, I will permit you. Author says, no, I will not collect tax under forward charge mechanism. Then RCM is applicable. Very simple. If author tells, sir, I want to pay tax under forward charge mechanism, then author will have to take a registration under GST point number 1, and author in the tax invoice which is going to issue, he will have to mention that specific word that the tax is collected by the author, and I will be paying the tax to the government. If you are not doing any such things, then RCM is applicable. The publisher will have to pay the tax under reverse charge. So an author can choose to pay tax in forward charge if he has taken a registration under CGST Act and has filed a declaration in the prescribed form that he is exercising the option to pay CGST on the said services under forward charge mechanism. So he should take a registration and he should also file a declaration that I am exercising the option to pay tax under forward charge, and he shall also make a declaration in the invoice which is issued by him. He should also make this declaration. So that is the change with regard to author services. Then new services have been added. There are 2 new services which is added. One services is very important. please note, this is something which was already there for May examination, but I am covering again so that if you would have forgot what was there earlier, and that you will be revising that also, or all the amendments applicable for May and November examination is it one video only, or one is at one place only. Now please note, I'll be uploading 2 videos. In this video I will be covering up to the topic called as value of supply. In the next video I will be taking the other topics, or maybe 3 parts may be there. Now this is an important amendment which is given, very important amendment. Services provided by way of what, sir? Services provided by way of renting of motor vehicle which is designed to carry passenger, where the cost of fuel is included in the consideration. Where the cost of fuel is included in the consideration, charged from the service recipient provided to a body corporate. Who is a supplier over here? Any person other than a body corporate who supplies the services to a body corporate and does not issues an invoice charging the central tax at the rate of 6% to its recipient. Who is the recipient? A body corporate located in taxable territory is liable to reverse charge mechanism. For explaining this, we'll just go to this chart. Now, a person who is in the business of renting of motor vehicle has 2 options. A person who is in the business of what? Renting of motor vehicle has 2 options. He has an option to pay tax at 5% and he has an option to pay tax at 12%. He has an option to pay tax at 5% and 12%. If he is opting to pay tax at 12%, if he is opting to pay tax at what, sir? 12%, then always forward charge. The supplier has to pay the taxes. Assuming there is a company called as Priya Cabs. Now Priya Cabs is in the business of renting of motor vehicle, wherein they are only the cost of fuel also is recovered from the companies. Now Priya Cabs is in the business of renting of motor vehicle. Priya Cabs is charging GST at 12%. Priya Cabs is opting to collect GST at 12%. Now if the GST is at 12%, then forward charge is applicable. So if Priya Cabs are charging rupees 1 lakh from Infosys for the services given by Priya Cabs, and the GST rate mentioned in the invoice or the document given by Priya Saris is 12%, then always forward charge. It is always forward charge. Priya Saris will have to collect that amount from Infosys and pay to the government. But however, if Priya Saris is opting to pay tax at 5%, then 2 arrow mark. Who is the supplier? The supplier is here over here is Priya Cabs. Is Priya Cabs and body corporate, or it is other than body corporate? Is Priya Cab and body corporate? Yes sir, it is body corporate. Then forward charge. Straight away Priya Saris has to collect the taxes from their recipient. Is the supplier, that is Priya Saris, other than body corporate, is an individual, partnership firm, HUF, etc. Yes sir, then RCM is applicable. When is RCM applicable? RCM will be applicable if the recipient is also body corporate. Priya Saris other than body corporate, supplier other than body corporate, recipient should be body corporate, then RCM is applicable. We'll see this particular diagram for better understanding. Now, a person who is in the business of renting of motor vehicle has 2 options. Option number 1, to pay tax at 12%. Option number 2, to pay tax at 5%. If it is opting to pay tax at 12%, always forward charge. But however, it is opting to pay, if it is opting to pay tax at 5%, then see who is the supplier. Is the supplier other than body corporate? Yes sir, the supplier is the other than body corporate. And is the check also who is the recipient. Is the recipient a body corporate? Yes sir, then RCM is applicable. Sir, what if supplier is other than body corporate and recipient is also other than body corporate? Recipient is also other than body corporate. It is normally exempt actually, but anyways, you can ignore this. Sir, supplier other than body corporate, recipient body corporate, RCM. Supplier is a body corporate, Priya Cabs is a body corporate, recipient other than body corporate, forward charge. Recipient other than body corporate, forward charge is applicable. Okay, recipient other than body corporate, forward charge is applicable. Very important amendment, very important amendment. The supplier should be other than body corporate, recipient should be a body corporate. Supplier other than body corporate, recipient body corporate, RCM. Supplier body corporate and recipient is also body corporate, or recipient is any purpose, a person, I don't care, always forward charge. Supplier is opting to pay tax at 12%, always forward charge, always forward charge. Then one more entry has been added. What is this entry, sir? Kanji Pinji time pass entry. Services by way of lending of securities under Security Lending Scheme 1997. SEBI has some scheme with regard to lending of securities, Security Lending Scheme 1997. So as per that scheme, if you are lending securities, then who is the supplier over here? Supplier is the person who is lending the certificates, that is, or lending the securities, that is the lender. The borrower is the person who is borrowing the securities. The borrower has to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism. See, normally these entries are in the nature of imports. Now we all know that import is subject to GST, import is subject to IGST. Similar entry is there over here also. So if SEBI has notified few people who can issue securities, if you're taking the securities as per that notification which is issued by SEBI, or under that scheme which is issued by SEBI, the person who is giving the security does not have to pay GST, but the person who is taking the borrowing securities has to pay GST under reverse charge mechanism. Very simple. Next is, they have given a clarification with regard to GST on airport levies. They have given a clarification with regard to what, sir? GST on airport levies. Now they are telling user development fees or the passenger service fees which is collected on that GST is applicable. On that GST is applicable. Now normally what happens whenever you are buying an air ticket, we know that if it is in economic class, there is some exemption applicable for, if it is in northeastern states, etc., exemption applicable. And for air ticket there are two types of okay, that is for commission. Now GST on air ticket. Now normally what happens, airlines, that airlines, say we'll talk about Indigo. Now Indigo is an airlines, it is charging rupees 5,000 for a travel from Bangalore to Delhi. If I want to go from Bangalore to Delhi, I will have to purchase an air ticket which is costing 5,000 rupees. Now this 5,000 rupees breakup, if I see, it will have, say, base fare, it will have some surcharges, fuel surcharges or taxes, and it will have something called as user development fees or passenger service fee. This user development fee is collected by the airline, that is Indigo. Indigo will collect from you this user development fee. Indigo will collect from you this user development fee, and this amount which is collected by them will be given to the airport authority or airport operators. In Bangalore it is Kempe Gowda International Airport. So this amount of user development fee, assuming in this 500 rupees is collected as user development fee. This user development fee which is collected by Indigo is given to the airport operator, that is Kempe Gowda International Airport. In the present example, sir, why are they giving this to the airport operator, sir? Why are they giving this to airport authority, sir? They are giving this because we are taking services of that airport. See, when you go to the airport, is that airport collecting something from you? When you check in, different services which meaning you go, you use escalators, you go to different places, etc. Is that airport authority collecting something from you? No, they don't collect anything from us. They collect from the airline directly. That amount which they are collecting is called as user development fee or passenger services fee. We are using the say we are using the place to keep our luggage, we are using the weighing machine which is kept at airport, we are using the different say seats which are available, we are using the charger places, etc. So for all these things they collect something called as user development fee. Who is collecting this? This is collected by the airline. The airline will make the payment of this user development fee to the airport authority or airport operator. This amount which is collected by them is subject to GST. This amount which is collected by them is subject to GST. GST is required to be paid on this amount. That is what is told in this point. That is what is told in this point. Services provided by an airport operator to passenger against consideration in the form of user development fee or passenger service fee are liable for GST. That is what is given over here. Okay. Now just a second, I'll connect charger and we'll just get back. Okay. Now exemptions. Okay, the amendments made in exemption topic. Very simple amendments. In exemptions there are no new amendments. Whatever was applicable for May examination, same amendments are there. There are no new amendments which are there. Anyways, we'll cover all those amendments also. Okay. Now before there was an entry for with regard to government services provided by central government, state government, union territory, local authority to a business entity with an aggregate turnover up to 20 lakh rupees or 10 lakh rupees in special category states is exempt. That was what the exemption talking about. It was giving the limit 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs. So if the government is providing services to a business entity, and if that business entity's turnover is less than, or if it is less than 20 lakhs or up to 20 lakhs or up to 10 lakhs, then it was exempt. Then no GST was required to be paid by that business entity. Now instead of using the word whose aggregate turnover was up to 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, they are telling if you are a business entity, who is not liable for registration as per section 22 subsection 1. 22 subsection 1 talks about the limits which they have given. If you are a business entity who is not eligible for registration only and you are taking a services from government, if you are a business entity who is not eligible for registration and you are taking a services from government, then for you exemption is there. For the services which is taken by you from the government, exemption will be applicable. Now simply what they have done is, instead of using the turnover limits, instead of giving the specific limit, the amounts of 20 lakhs, 10 lakhs, etc., they have told if you are not eligible for registration under GST, you don't have to pay tax for services taken from government. Please note, if services are given by government to a business entity, reverse charge is applicable. Further, reverse charge is applicable. Exemption is given. Services given by government to arrow marks. If it is given to a business entity or others, if the services are given by government to others, it is exempt. If the services are given by government to a business entity, again to arrow marks, is the turnover of business entity more than the limit specified for registration, or I will call it as more than the basic exemption limit for registration? Yes sir. Then RCM, GST payable. Then there is no exemption. If it is less than or equal to basic exemption limit for registration under GST, less than equal to, yes sir, it is less than equal to, then there is no GST. There is no GST payable at all. That is what they have done, nothing else. So services provided by central government, state government, local authority, union territory to a business entity with an aggregate turnover up to such amount in the preceding financial year, which makes it eligible for exemption from registration. Up to such amount, instead of calling it 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs, they are telling up to such amount. Whatever amount is specified, I don't know. If you're eligible for exemption from a registration, if you are not liable for registration, then you are not liable to pay tax also. You are not liable to pay tax also. Or if you are not liable for registration, exemption is also given to you. Exemption of services given by government to you is given, to a business entity is given. Similar change have been made in services provided by an arbitral tribunal or by an advocate, whether by a senior advocate, firm of advocate, partnership, or an individual advocate. Before, this entry was also telling if they provide services to a business entity with an aggregate turnover up to 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs in special category states, then it is exempt. Now, instead of using the word 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, they are telling up to such amount in the preceding financial year, which makes it eligible for exemption from registration. Up to such amount in the preceding financial year, which will make you eligible for exemption from registration, which will make sure that you are not liable for registration under GST, then you are exempt. Sir, what is the necessary, why did they give this, sir? See, they are using the word 10 lakhs in case of special category states. If you see section 22 subsection 1, the 10 lakh limit is not applicable for all special category states. For some special category state, 20 lakh limit is applicable. Now, 10 lakh limit is applicable only to make my trip to Nagaland. For other special category states such as Jammu and Kashmir, such as Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, etc., 20 lakh limit is applicable. Now, here they are using the word 10 lakhs, there they are using the word 20 lakh. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. Now, just because of this reason, they may be liable for liable to get registered under section 22. They are telling no, don't get registered. If your turnover is up to such amount which gives you a benefit of not getting registered under GST, please opt for that benefit and don't pay any GST under reverse charge. You will not subject to any GST under reverse charge because that supply is exempt. That supply is exempt. Some conclusion I have given, you can just have a look into this. Then, now, now also it is there. Now, there was a exemption given for services given by hotel in guest house, wherein the value of supply is up to rupees, where the value of supply is below rupees 1000 or its equivalent. If you are taking services from an hotel, inn, guest house, by campsite, whatever, by whatever name called, whether for residential purpose or for commercial purpose or lodging purpose, I don't care. And if the value of supply is below 1000 per unit per day or its equivalent, if the value of supply is below 1000, so before the word we are talking about below 1000, less than 1000, so less than 1000 does not say it is equal to 1000. So less than 1000 is how much? 999. If it is up to 999, exemption was given to you. Up to 999, exemption was given to you. Now they are telling whether it is up to 1000. So instead of calling it as below 1000, they are telling below 1000 or equal to 1000, exemption is given to you in both the cases. Instead of using the word less than 1000, they are using the word up to 1000. Up to is what, sir? Up to is less than or equal to 1000. Up to is what, sir? Up to is less than or equal to 1000. Below 1000 is only up to 999. Equal to 1000 is even 1000 rupees. If you are charging, exemption will be given to you. So if I go to an hotel and if the rent of that hotel is only 500 rupees, is the exemption given to me? Yes, sir. If the rent for of that hotel for accommodation is only 950 rupees, is exemption applicable? Yes, sir. If the rent of hotel is 999, is exemption applicable? Yes, sir. If the rent of hotel is 1000, is the exemption applicable? Yes, sir. If it's 1001 rupees, is exemption applicable? No. Sir, how much is taxable? Only the difference or full amount? Full amount will be taxable. Fully taxable. If it exceeds that limit, no, fully taxable. Now, similarly, one more addition they have made in services by way of giving on hire. Before there was one entry called as services by way of giving on hire to a state transport undertaking a motor vehicle meant for carrying more than 12 passengers. So if you give a vehicle to a state transport undertaking which is meant for carrying more than 12 passengers, then exemption was given to you. Please note, it should carry more than 12 passenger. Exemption was given to you if you are giving this vehicle on hire. Now they have added one more point. They are telling, if you are giving services by way of giving on hire, if you are giving your vehicle, which vehicle? Electrically operated vehicle. If you are giving this electrically operated vehicle to an local authority, which is meant for carrying more than 12 passenger. If you have an electrically operated vehicle which is meant for carrying more than 12 passenger, and if that vehicle is given on hire to an local authority, it is exempt. Sir, what if I give electrically operated vehicle to a state transport undertaking? Is exemption available? No. Only if you give this vehicle to an local authority, exemption is available. Sir, what if I give a normal motor vehicle to a local authority? Is exemption available? No. If you give electronically operated vehicle to a local authority which is meant for carrying more than 12 passengers, then only exemption is given. Now there are new entries which is added, which is not important at all, because this was supposed to be held under 17 FIFA Women's World Cup 2020 was supposed to be held this year in India, but it is not held. So these exemptions, I don't feel it is important, because 2 and 2020 is already done. So any services which is given by FIFA, any services which is given by or to FIFA, or subsidies of FIFA directly or indirectly, for what purpose? For the FIFA Under 17 Women's World Cup 2020 which will be hosted in India, is exempt. This is newly added point. Now this entry is important. Services by way of storage or warehousing of cereals, pulses, fruits, nuts, vegetables, spices, copra, sugarcane, jaggery, raw material fibers such as cotton, flax, jute, etc., indigo, unmanufactured tofu, betel leaves, tendu leaves, coffee, tea, all these are exempt. This is newly added exemption entry. Before, there was an exemption applicable only for agricultural produce. Services by way of warehousing or storaging of agricultural produce, exemption. Agricultural produce, exemption. Now spices are not agricultural produce. Now jaggery is not agricultural produce. Say coffee, tea, they are all not agricultural produce. Even if you store these items, even if you are storing these items and there is a storage person who is providing services of storing of these different items, then this service also will be exempt. There is no GST applicable. If you are storing tendu leaves, if you are storing coffee, if you are storing tea, sugarcane, jaggery, raw vegetables, nuts, fruits, etc., there is no GST applicable. There is no GST applicable. Very important. Other things are simple. Then services of life insurance. If you are giving what, sir? Life insurance services. If life insurance services are provided or agreed to be provided by Central Armed Police Force. If any life insurance services are provided or agreed to be provided by Central Armed Police Force, exemption is given. Now see, all these things they'll not ask. What is important is very important. Now again, entry number 82A also is not important because this event is not held. Not yet held. Maybe next year they may hold. Services by way of right to admission to events. Services by way of right to admission to event which is organized by FIFA Under 17 Women's World Cup 2020. So if your services by way of right to admission to, meaning they are talking about entry fee, or they are talking about ticket price which you are paying for going to this FIFA, going to watch this FIFA, is exempt. That is exempt. Anyways, no more applicable. There was one more exemption. Okay. Now, clarification they have given with regard to EMI transaction. Clarification regarding applicability of GST on delayed payment of charges in case of late fee on equated monthly installments, EMI. Now, EMI transaction. In case of EMI transaction, what happens? They give you, the supplier gives you a loan facility. He is telling, see sir, I am selling you a mobile phone for which you can pay me in monthly installment. Mobile phone is costing 40,000 rupees. You pay me in 4 monthly installment, 1000 into 4. So 44,000 rupees is what I am going to collect from you. Now, if I don't pay this amount, within a period of 4 months, then I'll collect something from you called as interest or late fee. I'll collect something called as interest or late fee. Now, this interest or late fee which is collected, is it subject to GST or not? Is this amount which is collected by them, is it subject to GST or not? Sir, why are you talking about whether it is subject to GST or not? Because if you remember section 15 subsection 2 clause D, section 15 subsection 2 talks about inclusions in value of supply. These are the different things which is required to be added by you in value of supply. One of such thing is what section 15 subsection 2 clause D talks about: interest, late fee, penalty for delayed payment of consideration. For delayed payment of consideration, if you are paying some interest, penalty, late fee for delayed payment of consideration, that is required to be added in value of supply. This is told by section 15 subsection 2 clause D. Similarly, if you see exemption list, there is an entry which is telling services by way of extending loans, deposits or advances insofar as the consideration is by way of interest or discount is exempt. It is exempt. Okay, entry number 47, I think. Entry number 47 is telling if you are charging interest or discount, if you are giving any loan or advances for which you are charging interest or discount, that is not subject to GST. That is not subject to GST. So there are two different provisions. One provision is telling it is exempt. Another provision is telling it should be included in value of supply. Now, so my question is, sir, with regard to EMI transaction, should it be added or it should not be added? See, with regard to EMI transaction, two things can happen. EMI transaction, two things can happen. Now there is, we'll take an example of mobile company only. There is Croma. There is Croma. Now, Mr. Dilip is purchasing iPhone 12. Mr. Dilip is purchasing iPhone 12 from Croma. Now, the cost of the phone is 1 lakh rupees. I tell Croma, see Croma, I will not be able to sell my kidney. Sorry. I will tell Croma, see Croma, I will not be able to pay you 1 lakh rupees. Can you please give me EMI? So Croma says, okay, Dilip, you do one thing. Croma says, okay, Dilip, you do one thing. Cost of phone is 1 lakh rupees. I will give you an EMI of 10 months, wherein you will have to pay. EMI is 12,000 rupees. That is, per month you pay me 12,000 rupees for a period of 10 months. So he is charging 20,000 extra. Why is he charging this extra 20,000? Because he is giving a facility to pay in installment. So he is charging some interest for this transaction. It is simple that, see, Croma is giving this phone for 10,000. Also, it is giving me a loan of. It is also giving me a loan of 1,20,000 rupees. Also giving me a loan of 1,20,000 rupees. Please see, this is not a loan. This is a benefit which is given by them to me. So for this benefit, if I don't pay, Croma also says, if you don't make the payment within 10 months, 10 months is the time limit, no? If you don't make the payment within 10 months, you will have to, Dilip will have to pay rupees 5,000 per month as an interest, late fee, penalty, etc. If you don't make the payment within 10 months, you will have to pay me 5,000 rupees extra every month. For every month delay you are doing, you will have to pay 5,000 rupees. Now, I don't make the payment in 10 months. I make the payment in 12 months time. I will have to pay 10,000 rupees extra, correct? This 10,000 rupees extra which I am paying is I can call it as interest on interest, or I can call it as penal interest. Or I can call it as penal interest. The question is whether it should be added in value of supply or not. Should the GST be paid on 1 lakh, or should the GST be paid on 1,10,000? Whether this 10,000 extra which is given by me, should it be subject to GST? Sir, why are you not talking about 20,000, sir? See, this 20,000 he is collecting from you because he is giving a benefit. He is giving an advance to you of 1 lakh rupees, for which he is charging interest equal to 1,000 rupees of per month. He is charging some extra amount from you. 2,000 rupees per month he is charging. Now this penal interest which is charged, no, that interest on interest, this is required to be added or not, sir? Yes, it is required to be added in value of supply. Yes, it is required to be added in value of supply. Why, sir, it is added in value of supply? Because this is a benefit which is given from Croma directly to me for purchase of mobile phone. This is a benefit which is given by Croma directly to me for purchase of this mobile phone. So please add it to value of supply, because it is an interest which is collected by Croma from me for delayed payment of consideration. Now case 2 may happen. Case number 2, say there is Croma and there is HDFC Bank. Now Croma tells me, see Dilip, Croma tells me, Dilip, there is a phone of this 1 lakh rupees. I tell Croma I cannot pay 1 lakh rupees right now. Croma tells me, Dilip, you can take a loan from HDFC. You can take a loan from HDFC Bank. So HDFC Bank says, Dilip, you will have to pay me 1,20,000. So 12,000 per month you will have to pay me. I will give an EMI for a period of 10 months. So totally 1,20,000 you will have to pay me. 1.2 lakhs you will have to pay me. Okay. Now there is one transaction between me and Croma. There is one transaction between me and Croma, that is sale of mobile phone. Sale of mobile phone by Croma to Dilip for 1 lakh rupees. So GST is required to be paid on 1 lakh rupees by Croma. There is one more transaction. So transaction number 2, this is transaction number 1. So there is one more transaction between me and HDFC Bank. There is one more transaction between me and HDFC Bank, wherein HDFC Bank is giving me a loan of 1 lakh rupees by collecting the amount back from me on equal monthly installment of 12,000 rupees. So totally it will collect 1,20,000. Now HDFC Bank also says, Dilip, I will collect 5,000 rupees from you for every month of delay which you do. If you don't make the payment to me within if you don't make the payment to me within the period of 10 months, I will collect 5,000 per month. Now I don't make the payment within 10 months, I make the payment in 12 months. So they are collecting 10,000 extra from me. Now this 10,000 extra which is collected, should it be added in the value of supply of this Croma? Answer is no. This interest which is paid by you, or this penal interest which is paid by me, is for the transaction between me and HDFC Bank. It is for the transaction between me and HDFC Bank. HDFC Bank has given me a loan. Interest on that loan is not subject to GST. That is, this 20,000 which they are charging is not subject to GST. It is exempt as per entry number 47 of exemption list. It is exempt as per exemption list. Similarly, the 10,000 extra which I am paying to the HDFC Bank is also not subject to GST. It is also not subject to GST. Why, sir? In transaction number 1, Croma is only giving me the loan facility. So why Croma is giving the loan facility? So that their sales can increase. In transaction number 2, Croma is only selling me a mobile phone for 1 lakh rupees. Loan is given by HDFC Bank. That loan which is given by HDFC Bank, that extra amount which I am paying to HDFC Bank is not required to be added in value of supply. That is what is told over here. Okay, you can just go through it, and also there is an example which is given which you can just have a look into. Now time pass, clarification. No, not time pass from exam perspective, or maybe a theory question they can ask. Section 11 subsection 3 is there. There is something called as section 11 subsection 3. What is this 11 subsection 3 is telling? 11 subsection 3 is telling the government can always insert an explanation or always give a clarification to an exemption notification. Now there is an exemption which is given by way of some notification. Government has the power to issue clarification within 1 year. If any clarification has been issued for an exemption notification, if any clarification has been issued for an exemption notification, then that clarification will be retrospectively effective, correct? That is what the main provision before it was telling. Now they are telling this retrospective effect which is there will be from the first entry of exemption. It will be from the inception. Sir, I didn't understand this, sir. See, sir, there is an exemption with regard to Resident Welfare Association, which is the next point which we'll be discussing. There is an exemption telling if the maintenance charges is up to 7,500, exemption will be there. If the maintenance charges is up to what, sir? 7,500, maintenance is up to 7,500, exemption will be there. Now this exemption entry was already there. This exemption entry was already there right from the 28/6/2017, right from the introduction of GST. From 1st July 2017 when the GST was introduced, this exemption entry was already there. However, the limit was 5,000. We'll ignore the limit for the time being. Now what they have done is in 2019, no, they have given a clarification with regard to what people used to do. People used to, if the maintenance was more than 7,500, say assuming the maintenance charge is 8,000 rupees, people used to pay GST only on 500 rupees, that extra amount which they are collecting. However, they gave a clarification in 2018, June 2018, they gave a clarification. Please note, clarification was given 2 years later, correct? The clarification or a circular was given 2 years later. They are telling this clarification which is given, this was again changed. Say assuming this clarification was given on 30th of June 2019, for which they gave an explanation on say 30th of November 2019, which is within 1 year, correct? Within 1 year. Now this clarification which they have given will be this explanation which they have given for this clarification will have a retrospective effect from the inception, from the time when this notification was first passed in 2017. No, from that time it will be effective. This is what is told. Anyways, time pass. Now there was one more entry with regard to services by way of lease, etc. With regard to that industrial plots. So upfront amount which you are paying as a premium, salami, cost, price, development charges, or whatever name called, in respect of services of grant of long-term lease for a period of 30 years or more of industrial plots. If you are taking industrial plots from state government, Industrial Development Corporation, or by any other entity, having 20% or more of the ownership of central government, state government, or union territory, then it is exempt. Before, this 20% was not there. Before, the percentage was 50. Meaning, if you take on long-term lease, what, sir? Industrial plots, if you are taking for a period of 30 years or more from SDIC, state government, SG, Industrial Development Corporation, or from any other undertaking in which the government has a control, a government has a stake. How much stake? 20% or more stake. In which the central government, state government, etc. have a stake of 20% or more, then exemption will be given. Before, the stake was 50%. Now they have reduced from 50 to 20%. Even if the government has a stake of 20% in a company and you are taking industrial plots from them on long-term lease, then also exemption will be given to you. And they have added an explanation also. This 20% which is required to be there, no, this 20% can be directly from central government, state government, or it can be through an wholly owned subsidy. Meaning what, sir? Say state government of Karnataka has and holding in HAL. How much holding? It has say 50%. So it is wholly owned by state government of Karnataka. Now state government of Karnataka has an holding in say Priya Saris. How much holding, sir? It has 30% holdings in Priya Saris. Priya Saris has an industrial plot which it has given on rent to different people. Sorry, not lent, it has given on lease to different people. Now Priya Saris has given this industrial plots on lease to different people. Exemption is available. Why, sir, exemption is available? Because state government is having 30% in Priya Saris. Indirectly state government is having 30% in Priya Saris, so exemption is available. That is what this point is telling. So before it was 50%, now it is 20%. So clarification with regard to Resident Welfare Association. See, this is something which is not so important as per my view, because I think in regular classes properly only we have taught, but just a clarification which they have given. Now what is the clarification, sir? With regard to maintenance, I'll just explain these points to you. What are the different points which has been given? First point is, are maintenance charges paid by resident to Resident Welfare Association in the housing society exempt? If yes, what is the upper limit for exemption? Now maintenance charges up to 7,500 is exempt. There is an exemption entry which is telling up to 7,500 it is exempt. So same thing, if you are making a contribution up to 7,500 per month per member, then it will be exempt from GST. Now the question is, sir, I am a resident welfare association. Question number 2, I am a resident welfare association whose turnover is less than 20 lakhs, whose turnover is below that exemption registration limit, and I am collecting a maintenance of 8,000 rupees, more than 7,500. Should I pay GST? Answer is no. When you are not liable for registration only, the provisions of exemption etc. will not be applicable to you. If you are not liable for registration, different provisions of GST will not be applicable to you. Sir, what if my turnover is more than 20 lakhs? If your turnover is more than 20 lakhs, you are liable for registration. If you are liable for registration and the maintenance charges per member per month is more than 7,500, you will have to pay GST. And please note, GST is on the entire amount. So if the maintenance charges which you are collecting per member per month is 8,000 rupees, pay GST on 8,000 rupees. Pay GST on 8,000 rupees. Then, now next question is, whether if I am paying GST, can I take input tax credit? Definitely. Resident Welfare Association who is registered can definitely take input tax credit on inputs, input services and capital goods, whichever it is using in the course of furtherance of business. However, you should please note the CGST rules. There are few reversal which you may have to do. Now next question was, sir, if one owner has two different flats, Dilip has two flats. See, in Brigade Gateway, I have two flats, flat 1, flat 2. Now the question is, sir, is it applicable flat wise or member wise? Sir, Dilip has two flats, so will each of the flat separate 7,500 benefit I will get, or the benefit is only for Dilip, that is 7,500? Meaning 15,000 benefit will Dilip get or not? Answer is yes, Dilip will get 15,000 benefit. Here per member means per flat, as simple as that. Per member means per flat. It is not the owner of flat. Single person can have 10 different flats. For all these 10 different flats, for each and individual flat, maintenance will be calculated. For each and individual flat, 7,500 limit is applicable. For each and individual flat, 7,000 limit is applicable. Now that is what is given in that topic. You can just have a reading. Next is with regard to value of supply. Last topic for today's discussion, section 31A. Section 31A. Sir, what is this section 31A, sir? Section 31A talks about valuation, not section 31A, sorry. Rule 31A. Rule 31A talks about valuation in case of lottery. In case of lottery, what we used to do in class, or what used to happen normally in case of lottery, two arrow marks. One is lottery is run by state government, or lottery is authorized by state government. If lottery is run by state government, 100 in say face value of lottery ticket into 100 divided by 112 was what we were doing. And if it is authorized by state government, face value into 100 divided by 128. This is what we were doing before. Now this valuation they have told no, this valuation is little difficult, we are getting confused, etc, etc. They have told let us have a simple valuation, face value into 100 divided by 128. For valuing lotteries, the simple formula is face value or the price which is notified by the government in official gazette, etc, into 100 divided by 128. This will give you the value of supply in case of lottery. Meaning, before for lottery run by state government and lottery authorized by state government, there was different calculation. Now whether it is lottery run by state government or it is authorized by state government, I don't care. For lottery, the valuation is face value into 100 divided by 128. So it can be either face value or price notified. So before we had two different valuation, now the two different valuation is not there. Now there is a single valuation. What is that single valuation, sir? Face value into 100 divided by 128. I don't care whether it is lottery run by the state government or it is lottery which is authorized by state government. So post amendment, what is the value of supply of lottery shall deem to be 100 divided by 128, that is face value of lottery ticket or the price notified in the official gazette by the organizing state, whichever is higher. I'll take face value or the price notified, whichever is higher, I'll take multiply that by 100 divided by 128. Whatever value I'm getting will be the value of supply. Conclusion, time pass. Now there is only single rate for finding value of supply for lottery ticket. Okay, so this is all from my side for today. Next video maybe by this Sunday I will be recording. This I am recording on 27th. I think today's date is 27th. Yeah, so this I am recording on 27th. Next video I'll record by Sunday. So it may be available on Sunday or maybe the next day, that is Monday. Thanks a lot. Till then, enjoy. Tada, bye bye, take care. And also, if you have any queries, 962002-2004 is my number. You can WhatsApp me. No phone calls, only WhatsApp. Okay, tada, bye bye, see you. Enjoy.